This is The Cousins by Karen M. McManus, Chapter 4. Millie. Doesn't look like much, does it? Jonah asks. I steal a glance at him across Aubrey. The rain has cleared and we're on the upper deck watching our approach to Gull Cove Island. Jonah rests his forearms against the rail and leans forward, the wind tussling wavy, dark brown hair that's halfway between Aubrey's blonde and nearly black. The pointed chin, I remember, has morphed into a square jaw, and braces did him a world of good. Not that he smiles much. I think it's pretty, Aubrey says, raising her voice to be heard over the roar of the ferry's motor. The boat pitches sharply to one side, sending a spray of white foam into the air. I hold tightly to the rail with one hand and use the other to indulge in a nervous habit my mother hates, bringing the knuckle of my thumb between my teeth. My damp skin tastes like salt, but it's better than the exhaust-filled air we're breathing. Me too, I say. My words are automatic, a reflexive desire to disagree with Jonah, but he's right. Even from a distance, the island looks flat and unremarkable, surrounded by a strip of pale yellow beach melting into an ocean that's almost the same shade of gray as the dense, low-hanging clouds that surround us. Tiny white houses dot the shoreline against a backdrop of short trees, and the only spot of color is a squat tan lighthouse striped with jaunty blue. It's so small, Aubrey says. Hope we don't get island fever. I pull my knuckle from my mouth and lower arm, feeling the heavy weight of my watch slide to my wrist as I do. My grandmother's battered old Patek Philippe is the only memento my grandmother passed along to my mother before she cut off contact. No matter how many times mom's tried to have it repaired, the watch refuses to tell time. It always reads 3 o'clock, so twice a day, like about now probably, it's right. Maybe Mildred will work us so hard that we won't even notice, I say. Aubrey glances at me. You call her Mildred? Yeah, what about you? Gran. My dad always says you're Gran, so I guess I just went with that. She turns towards Jonah. What do you call her? Nothing, he says briefly. We're silent for a few minutes as the ferry continues its progress towards shore. The white houses get bigger, the yellow strip of sand more defined, and soon we're passing so close to the lighthouse that I can see people walking around its base. The dock is crowded with boats, most of them much smaller than the one we're on, and we neatly slot into a space between two of them. Welcome to Gull Cove Island, the captain calls over the intercom as the noise of the engine abruptly stops. It's packed, Aubrey says nervously, scanning the crowd on the dock below us. Tourist trap central, Jonah says, turning from the rail and toward the staircase. Have you looked up how much rooms cost at Gull Cove Resort? People are out of their minds. He shakes his head. The beaches are way better on Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, but somehow being the worst, smallest island has become a selling point, because it's off the beaten path. When we near the ferry's exit, Jonah veers off to one side and hauls a battered duffel bag out from under a bench. Where's your stuff? He asks Aubrey and me. We checked it when we came on board, I say, eyeing his bag. Is that all you brought? Jonah slings the duffel over one shoulder. I don't need much. We enter the stream of people leaving the ferry, following the narrow walkway from the boat to the dock. It's a full-on vacation crowd. Despite the cloudy weather, everyone is decked out in shorts, sunglasses, and baseball hats. My red dress looks completely out of place, even though I wore it for a reason. It was my mother's in high school, one of the few things she held on so that I can get away with wearing today. Putting it on felt like getting a subtle dig in at my grandmother for bringing us all this way without acknowledging her children first. They still exist, Mildred, whether you want to admit it or not. The ferry walkway exits onto a wide cobblestone path, flanked by shingled buildings in alternating shades of white and gray. As soon as we reach the road, I take a deep breath, then startle a little as I smell honeysuckle mixed with the salty air. Mom's signature fragrance. But I've never smelled it live before. A row of luggage tents on wheels line one side of the cobblestone path. Aubrey and I find number 243 as we were instructed when a valet took our suitcases and opened the flap. Here they are, Aubrey says, sounding relieved as she pulls out a suitcase and a backpack. I go in for mine. Behind me, Jonah lets out a snort of disbelief as I extract two large rolling suitcases, a smaller carry-on, and a bulging laptop bag. That can't be all yours, he says. When I don't reply, he adds, Did you pack your entire closet? Not even close, but he doesn't have to know that, or that the smaller suitcase is for nothing but shoes. We're going to be here for 2 months, I say. Jonah narrows his eyes as he takes in my suitcases. There's Toomey with pearlized aluminum casing, and I suppose if you don't know my mother bought them secondhand on eBay, they might look a little ostentatious. Especially in the middle of the shorts and t-shirt crowd. Gull Cove Island visitors have money, lots of it, but they don't flaunt it. That's part of the alleged charm of this place. Guess Aunt Allison is doing all right, Jonah says. Oh, please, I snap. You were going to go to some fancy-ass science camp all summer, so don't judge me for bringing wardrobe options. Except I couldn't afford it, Jonah says. Something almost like anger flashes across his face before he composes his features into the usual expression of half boredom, half disdain. And now I get to be here instead. I pause before the reflexive response, lucky us, crosses my lips. I don't know a lot about my cousin's financial situations. I know Aubrey's mom is a nurse and her dad has spent the past 10 years trying to write another book, so they're probably comfortable but not rolling in it. Jonah's parents' situation is murkier. Uncle Anders is a financial consultant, supposedly, but the kind who works for himself instead of an actual company. A couple of weeks ago, when I was trying to find any information I could about Jonah's family online, I stumbled across a short article in the Providence Journal about Uncle Anders, in which a disgruntled former client called him the Bernie Madoff of Rhode Island. I didn't know who that was, so I had to look him up. Apparently, Bernie Madoff was a financial advisor who went to jail after cheating thousands of investors in a giant Ponzi scheme. I'd felt a shocked little thrill then. Our family had always been strange, but never criminal. Until I kept reading. Ultimately, even though a couple of former clients reported him for fraud, all that could be proved was that Uncle Anders gave bad financial advice. It wasn't a big enough story to make the New York paper, so my mother hadn't seen it. She didn't seem especially shocked when I told her. Nobody with an ounce of common sense would ask Anders to help manage their money, she'd said. Why, I asked. I thought he was supposed to be brilliant. He is, but there's only one person who interests Anders has ever looked out for, and that's Anders himself. What about Aunt Victoria or Jonah? I'd asked. Mom's lips had thinned. I'm talking about business, not family. But from the look on her face, she didn't think much of those relationships either, which might have had something to do with the bitter expression Jonah's wearing right now. Aubrey gazes around the teeming crowd surrounding us. No, Gran, she says sadly, like she honestly expected Mildred to be waiting for us. Should we just grab a cab? I guess I don't see any, though. I squint against the emerging sun and pull my sunglasses from the top of my head, settling the large tortoise-shell frames across my nose. Allison. It takes the name being repeated a few times, plus Jonah's furrowed brow, before I look for the source. An old man, white-haired and frail, stands beside me, with his watery brown eyes fastened on my face. Allison, he repeats in a low, wavering voice. You came back. Why did you come back? I glanced between the man and my cousins, at a loss for words. People have told me that I look like my mother. Surprisingly like her. They sometimes add a sideways glance at my dad, but I've never been mistaken for her before. Is it the dress, the sunglasses, or is this guy just senile? Does Mildred know? The man says, sounding agitated. She wouldn't like this, Allison. She wouldn't like it at all. The back of my neck prickles. I'm not Allison, I say, pulling off my sunglasses. The old man startles and takes a step back, the heel of his shoe catching on a cobblestone. He nearly stumbles, but Aubrey darts forward, lightning quick, and catches hold of his arm. You okay there? She asks. He doesn't reply, still looking at me as though he's seen a ghost, and she adds, It sounds like you know our grandmother, Mildred Story. This is Millie, Allison's daughter, and I'm Aubrey. Adam Story is my father. She gestures towards Jonah with her free hand. And this is Jonah. Adam. the man says faintly. Adam is here? Oh no, Aubrey says, smiling brightly. Just me, I'm his daughter. The man looks forlorn and lost, one hand fumbling at the empty pocket of his cardigan like he just realized he left something important behind. Adam had seeds of greatness, didn't he? But he wasted them. Foolish boy. Could have changed it all with a word. Granddad, a harried voice floats our way, and I turn to see a girl around our age striding towards us. Granddad, a harried voice floats our way, and I turn to see a girl around our age striding towards us. She's short and muscular, with brown skin, freckles, and a cloud of dark hair. Both of her wrists are piled high with braided leather bracelets. I told you to wait in front of Sweet Fern. Parking was impossible because of all the damn tourists. She pauses as she takes in the three of us surrounded by suitcases, with Aubrey still propping up her grandfather. I mean, new arrivals. Is he alright? She asks, a note of anxiety creeping into her voice. The man blinks slowly a few times, like he's trying to bring her into focus. Fine, Hazel, just fine, he murmurs. A little tired, is all. Hazel takes hold of her grandfather's arm, and Aubrey steps back. I think we startled him, she says apologetically, even though it was the other way around. He seems to know our grandmother. Really? Hazel asks. Who's your grandmother? Mildred Story? Aubrey says it like she's not sure the name will register, but the girl's eyes immediately widen. Her face, which had been tense and preoccupied, breaks into a wide smile. No way! You guys are Stories? What are you doing here? Working at our grandmother's resort for the summer, Aubrey says. Hazel's gaze bounces between the three of us with avid interest. Wow, is this your first time on Gold Cove Island? Aubrey and I nod, and she squeezes her grandfather's arm. Granddad, how could you not tell me the Story grandkids were spending the summer here? You must have known, right? No, the old man says, plucking at the pocket of his cardigan again. Maybe you forgot, she turns to us and adds in a lower voice. Granddad has early stage dementia. Sometimes he's fine, but other times he gets really confused. He's friends with Mrs. Story though, and he was her family doctor, so he knew your parents really well. I'm Hazel Baxter Clement, by the way. My grandfather is Dr. Fred Baxter. I recognized the name immediately. Of course, my mother used to say he must have been the only doctor alive who still made house calls. Hazel grins. Well, for your family. My dad said the same thing, Aubrey says, and also that your grandfather got him playing lacrosse again in high school after he'd injured his knee. We all look at Jonah to see whether he'll weigh in with a memory, but he just stares at his phone, rude as ever. Then he thrusts the screen towards Aubrey and me. Yelp says we should go to Hurley Street to find a cab. Hurley is right around the corner, Hazel says, pointing to our left. I grasp the handle of my carry-on as she adds, Hey, so this might be kind of weird and random when we just met, but I actually did a school project that included your family last semester. I'm a history major at BU, and my independent study is about early colonists whose descendants are thriving in the information age. My professor really liked the initial write-up and wants me to expand on it next fall. Is there any chance I could interview you guys? She smiles ingratiatingly when none of us respond right away. Total softball questions, I promise. I put my sunglasses back on to avoid Hazel's gaze. Even softball questions are loaded when you're a Story. We might be kind of busy for a while. I understand. Could I give you my number in case you find the time, or if you just want to know what's fun to do on the island? I'd be happy to show you around. She looks at Jonah, who still has his phone out, and quickly recites her number. I can't tell whether he actually adds it or just pretends to. Enjoy your first day, Hazel says. Come on, Granddad, let's get some ice cream. Dr. Baxter has been quietly leaning on his granddaughter's arm while we talk, but Hazel's voice seems to shake him out of his reverie. He focuses on me again, a frown tugging down the corners of his mouth. You shouldn't have come, Allison. Hazel clucks her tongue. Granddad, that's not Allison. You're confused. She offers us a smile and wave before steering him toward the cafe behind us. See you around. Aubrey stares after them as they disappear into the cafe. Well, that was strange, she says. Then she hitches her backpack over her shoulder, grabs the handle of her suitcase, and starts toward Hurley Street. I pause, eyeing my suitcases, until Jonah heaves a deep sigh and grabs hold of the two big ones. Can you handle the rest, princess? He asks over his shoulder as he drags them across the cobblestone. Yes, I mutter ungraciously. I would have thanked him without the princess comment. Whoa, Jonah says when our taxi driver pulls to a stop. Gull Cove Resort is on the opposite side of the island from the ferry dock, or we never could have missed it. The architecture is Victorian mansion meets modern luxury beach spa, which works a lot better than you'd think. It's also the biggest building I've seen here so far, 4 stories high, and I don't know how many rooms across. The paint is pristine white, the flowering shrubs are perfectly shaped and bursting with color, and the grass is impossibly green. Even the driveway feels smooth and newly paved. Enjoy your stay, the driver says, getting out of the cab so he can help pull our suitcases from the trunk. Gonna be a long one, huh? I hand him a $10 bill for our $7 ride. You could say that. Aubrey's consulting her phone. We're supposed to pick up registration packets in Edward Franklin's office, she reports. First floor near the lobby. Let's leave the scrap here, Jonah says, dragging all the suitcases and duffels off to one side. He rolls his eyes at my dubious expression. Oh, come on. Rooms here start at $800 a night. Nobody's taking your stuff. Shut up, I grumble, grabbing my laptop bag and brushing past him towards the front door. Every time Jonah opens his mouth, I wonder if this entire summer was a mistake. A smiling concierge in the spacious air lobby directs us to Franklin's office. We pass the elevators and turn down a narrow hallway with plush carpeting. I'm so busy looking at the framed photographs hanging on the walls, eager for a glimpse of my grandmother, or maybe even my mother, among the smiling guests, that I nearly bump into Aubrey when she stops short. Hello, she calls, rapping on the door. Is this where we get orientation stuff? It is, calls a cheerful voice. Come in, come in. We step into a small office dominated by a large walnut desk. A smiling man sits behind, surrounded by haphazardly stacked folders. He has Draco Malfoy white blonde hair swept to one side, and he's wearing a crisp white shirt and a tie patterned with bright blue fish. Hello, and please excuse the mess, he says. We're a little disorganized at the moment. You must be Edward, I say. It's a logical assumption given that he's sitting in Edward's office, but friendly Draco shakes his head. I'm not. I'm Carson Fine, head of hospitality for Gull Cove Resort, doing double duty until we find Edward's replacement. His what? I frowned. He's not here? He left 2 days ago, Carson says. Bit of an abrupt departure, but don't worry. The summer hire program continues without him. I just need your names, please. Millie Story Takahashi, Aubrey Story, and Jonah Story, I say. Carson's hand paws over his keyboard. Really? Did you guys know you have the same last name as the resort's owner? What a coincidence. I don't think we've ever had another story here before. And now we've got 3 of you. His blue eyes crinkle. Too bad you're not related, huh? Jonah clears his throat as Aubrey and I exchange startled glances. How can this guy not know who we are? It seems like the sort of thing people would talk about here, even if they're not running the summer hire program. We are related, I say. We're her grandchildren. Right, wouldn't that be nice? Carson chuckles. When no one else cracks a smile, his vanishes. Wait, are you serious? Didn't Edward tell you? I ask. We've been talking to him about it since April. And then, because I feel a sudden urge to prove myself, I pull a folder full of our correspondence out of my laptop bag. It's all here if you want to see. Carson takes the folder but barely glances through it before handing it back. He never said a word. I can't believe him. Oh, Edward, you utter incompetent. If you hadn't already quit, I'd fired you. Let me see if he left some notes. He taps furiously at the keyboard while we stand in uncomfortable silence. Then his expression brightens. Okay, I'm not seeing any background, but the good news is your grandmother is actually at the resort as we speak. We just finished renovating the ballroom for the summer gala, and she's conducting a site visit. So if you can hold tight for just a few minutes, I'll bring her right by. Aubrey's eyes widen in alarm. What now? Carson jumps to his feet with energy of someone determined to right a grievous hospitality wrong. No time like the present. Be right back. He darts into the hallway, leaving the three of us standing awkwardly around his desk. I swipe suddenly damp palms against the skirt of my dress. I thought I was prepared to meet my grandmother, but now that it seems imminent, I'm not. My mind goes blank, and the room falls silent except for tiny music piping from a speaker somewhere. After a few seconds, I recognize a familiar chord and almost laugh out loud. It's Africa by the band Toto, and it was my mother's favorite song growing up. The only family video she has, which I've watched a dozen times. It's of her and my uncle singing Africa on the beach when they were kids. The music seems like a strangely fitting backdrop as footsteps approach, accompanied by Carson's eager voice. So lucky that I caught you before you left, Mrs. Story. I hear Aubrey's gulp, and then there she is, standing directly in front of me for the first time in my life. The elusive, eccentric, mysterious Mildred Story, my grandmother. I take her in bit by bit. First, the jewelry, because of course I would notice that. Mildred is wearing a double strand of lustrous gray pearls, striking against her sharp black suit and matching drop earrings. Her heels are impressively high for a woman in her 70s, and she's topped off the outfit with a small netted hat. She looks like she's going to some elder statesman's funeral. Her purse is gleaming black crocodile with a distinctive gold lock on the front. I've seen enough fake Birkins in New York to recognize the $20,000 real deal. Mildred's famously high cheekbones have softened with age, but she's still as impeccably made up as she was in every photo I've seen of her as a younger woman. The most eye-catching thing about her, though, is her hair. It's tied back in a low bun, and is such a pure, snowy white that I can't believe it's her natural color. Her gaze flits between Aubrey and Jonah, neither of whom look anything like their fathers, before settling on me with a spark of recognition. So it's true, she says, in a low, throaty voice. You really are here. I have to fight off the irrational urge to curtsy. Thank you for inviting us. Mildred inhales sharply, her brows drawing together. Inviting you, she repeats. We stare at one another until Carson nervously clears his throat and our grandmother's face transforms into a smooth, expressionless mask. Indeed, she says, transferring her Birkin from one arm to the other. You must be exhausted from your travel. Carson, please bring them to the dormitories. I'll have my assistant reach out to arrange a more fitting time for us to talk. Over her shoulder, Carson looks crushed. Right, of course, he says. I'm so sorry. I should have taken them there the first thing. Please don't trouble yourself, Mildred says coolly. It's perfectly fine. But I know better. In the seconds before my grandmother regained her composure, one of my tangled thoughts separated from the rest with total, piercing clarity. She had absolutely no idea that we were coming.